So Zach Grant here, just taking a quick video today from the center of chaos as my children are going to be running around in the midst of this video, but that's this coronavirus life. So the video today is about why disability ministry, and again, I think really all ministry ought to be with and not to people. So the reality is that the scriptures are explicit about the fact that all people are given gifts that are vital parts of the body. But the way that we operate a lot of the time is as though life is like a game of dodgeball. And fortunately, life has very different objectives than dodgeball, though you wouldn't know it to see the way that we go through it sometimes. In God's picture, there aren't good picks and bad picks, assets and liabilities. Everyone is important. Everyone is bringing something to the table that isn't just beneficial, it's necessary. So people with disabilities aren't in a group that are being ministered to while the able are just giving their gifts. No, everyone is gifted. Everyone ministers. We might start with some sense of sympathy or some sense of charity, but we can never end there. If we do, then we've just well and fully missed it. One of the things that I hope that this persuades us is that doing disability ministry is not a choice in the allocation of limited resources. It's never a question of, can we as a church afford to do disability ministry? We can't afford not to. There are gifts in that community that we are missing. And do you need your buffalo? Okay, I love you. There are gifts in that community that we are missing, and the body of Christ is in pieces because we can't shake our dodgeball mindset of assets and liabilities. I hope also that this persuades us that ministry to people with disabilities doesn't have to be a choice for you between disability ministry and some other calling. Ministry with people means that they come along with us in the things that God is calling us to. In the beautiful way that God works, there is an endless variety. And a person with disabilities, as with anyone, might bring something totally different. So I have no idea of how this is going to look in your life, in your community, in your church. But I'll tell two stories. So if you've known me for any length of time, you've heard me tell these stories before, and so just feel free to turn off the video. But when I worked as a youth minister and for Young Life Capernaum, which is Young Life's ministry that focuses on people with disabilities, those two worlds would intersect all the time. And I had a guy, and I'll leave off names because I haven't had a chance to ask them if they want their stories shared. But this guy was a part of things with Capernaum, and he would be a part of things with the youth ministry of the church. And so one of the freshmen in the high school was giving me just the business. He was such a punk, which is to say that he was, a freshman, a high school boy, and it's kind of funny now because he's so wonderful, and so is his little brother, and his sister was even better than both of them combined. But at the time, he was just giving me such a hard time, and I remember sitting in some kind of Bible study or a lesson or something like that, and I'm trying to persuade him, something simple. I said just some throwaway comment like, money is not going to buy you happiness. $1 million will not make you happy. And he said, "You're a fool." He said, "Zach, $1 million will buy me a Bugatti, and that will definitely make me happy." And I said, "A Bugatti is not going to make you happy either." And he said, "Well, have you driven a Bugatti?" And I hadn't. And so I was like, boy, a little bit disappointed in my just inability to get across to this guy some of these simple concepts. Oh, thank you for the muffin. Some of these simple concepts of faith. In comes this other guy who I had mentioned before that was involved with me in Capernaum, and he's a young man with Down syndrome, and he and this kid who wants a Bugatti, they get together a little bit, and the guy who wants the Bugatti, he comes to me and he says, I'm thinking about getting involved with Best Buddies, but I wouldn't want anybody else but, this guy that I was mentioning. I wouldn't want anybody but him to be my buddy. And I say, okay, sure, sounds great. I don't care about that. And so then he's part of Best Buddies, and then he's president of Best Buddies, and then his younger brother, who I mentioned was wonderful, he starts a Best Buddies chapter at his middle school, and his sister's doing really wonderful work, and I remember they had like a Bible study during their lunch period, and I remember some of these folks with disabilities were involved in that too, and just this cool ministry kind of came out of that. And whose ministry was that? Was that my ministry as the youth minister? Was it this neurotypical high school student's ministry? Was it the student with disabilities ministry? Surely God did it. But the way that he did it was with all of us. The whole was certainly greater than the sum of its parts. Here is the other story that I was going to tell, and this is a guy that works with me now, and he's coming along to volunteer with me in a ministry to the schools, and we would go and volunteer in a class that a special education class for people with disabilities. And you might not have picked this guy to go with you because he had some issues of his own and some difficulties reading. He would not have been, within the dodgeball sort of mentality, the pick to come along and mentor students at a school. But I remember we went there the first day, and this was a class with some of the most kind of significant support needs, and I remember leaving that classroom and thinking, boy, this is going to be pretty tough volunteering in this classroom. And on the way home, this guy, all the way home, just talked about all the wonderful things that he saw in these students. And he had eyes to see them the way that probably nobody but their parents sees them. These eyes that see them the way that God sees them, with love and possibility and all the things that they offer. And that was something that I was lacking that this guy brought. No sort of dodgeball mentality would have made our partnership make sense. But this person was absolutely the person that I needed to go into that school with. He had the critical gift that was a lens which showed the value of the entire enterprise. It's pretty significant.